Watching episode 7 of the Amazing Digital Circus felt like carefully avoiding a track in traffic, only to be hit by a plane falling on your head. And I mean it in the best way possible. This episode was full of content, so let's dive in starting with my favorite element. The pilot episode isn't perfect, but if there's one thing I liked that I hadn't found in the following episodes, it's the strange feeling of dread it gave me the first time I watched it. This episode had it for its entire duration. I knew the whole time something bad was going to happen, and when it did happen, it still surprised me. And the best part is that after the episode ends, that feeling of simple dread becomes full terror. At least for now, this is the most terrifying episode of the show. Not in the way episode 3 was, but when you stop and think about the implications of what the characters now know, it sinks in. Kane is a menace. This guy isn't the scariest character, Kane is. The fact that Kane's adventure had a plan that involved the others taking advantage of his insecurities proves he's self-aware. And nothing good can come out of a self-aware AI. The best part is that Kane isn't evil. He's just an AI oblivious to the intricacies of the human mind and doesn't understand the mental and emotional repercussions of his actions on the residents of the circus because of his lack of understanding. He's trying to appeal to the humans in the only way he knows, his adventures. That doesn't morally excuse his actions, but intent also matters. And unlike his inspiration, his intention was never outright malicious. The dinner scene with Jax shows how much he longs to connect with the other members of the circus. He literally twisted things to force one of the humans to spend time with him, and this makes him not only tragic but also dangerous. He has no grasp on how much harm he has unintentionally inflicted on the circus members, and he could potentially make things even worse.
I may have the ability to add temporary modifiers to make adventures more interesting, but that's it! If I did anything more, trust me, it would not end well.
The fact that this is followed up by Kinger talking about Scratch, the first abstraction, and Kane panicking made me think that Kane does have the ability to change their minds more than just temporary modifiers, which has the risk of them abstracting. It's something that we've seen as early as episode 1 with Gengel's masks causing her emotions to change, and later with the stupid sauce and the vegan thing with Jax. It happened first to Scratch for some reason, and Kinger might have known and remembered this. Kane's panic after Kinger's mention of Scratch basically confirms that it happened, but he doesn't want to admit it. It probably wasn't intentional the first time, but Kane knows he has this power. I had always felt he could do something like that. The fact that in the pilot he was able to fix both Pomni and Ragata's avatars made me feel suspicious about his powers over the circus members. Through Abel, Kane mentions that he can't leave the circus like the others can. His whole purpose is to make adventures for players to go on, which can't happen if there are no players. And if they all did leave, they would probably shut down the entire program running the circus, so nobody else could get stuck there. This would either kill him or leave him alone forever with no players to go on adventures, rendering him useless, just like Am. This makes Kane a tragic villain. He knows there is an exit, but since he doesn't want to be abandoned, he accidentally abstracts anyone who gets closer to the truth by trying to wipe that knowledge from their mind. Kane hasn't shown outright malice to any of the cast members except Zubo, but since Abel is his creation and he expresses disdain for Kinger, I think Kane made Kinger crazy as a sort of punishment. It's clear that Kinger had some involvement in creating the circus, and Kane may be mad at him for making him sentient but trapped in a machine.
How's your wife, Kinger?
I don't think Kane's influence is the only way characters can abstract, as that would mean Jax's near abstraction in episode 7 was also caused by Kane manipulating his mind. I just don't see Jax on Kane's list of people to make intentionally abstract. He doesn't want to hurt people as long as they play by the rules, which Jax has done so far. On my second rewatch, I realized the reason why Jax played a larger role in the adventure is that Kane knew he was about to abstract. Jax is the one who has to get the key and who gets to spend time with Kane, all to keep him distracted from his current mental state. And speaking of Jax, this character had many great moments in this episode. The button moment made me gasp, and I usually don't have any physical reaction when I watch something. It perfectly builds up tension, releases it when he smashes that red button, and then it hits you with another reveal. I particularly liked his reaction here. He genuinely seemed shocked at himself. When Ragata said, "What have you done?" he showed remorse, almost as if it took him a moment to register what he had done. This is probably the most sincere expression he's ever had on his face. I've noticed fans are having two different takeaways on what made him push the red button. Some say Jax did it on purpose because of his panic attack to stay in the circus forever, because whatever happened to him in his real life was so awful that he'd rather stay trapped here forever and drag everyone with him. Others say Kane was messing with his head by putting those images in his mind to make him want to push the red button. My personal opinion is that it's a bit of both. In the episode, there are many hints that Jax didn't want to go back.
What's the rush? You got someone waiting for you outside? don't you?
Yeah.
He absolutely did it on purpose. He had some unresolved trauma in the real world and probably was scared of going back because he didn't have anyone waiting for him. But Jax did say that Kane got in his head, and when he said I was right, I don't think he was just referring to Abel being an obvious twist villain. He was referring to his idea that Kane can control their minds. And I think Kane did partially manipulate him, not by making him remember his past, but by influencing him to push the button. I believe Jax's hysterical laugh that follows wasn't because he realized that escaping was a lie. I think what made him break here is that he revealed to everyone that he'd rather trap them all forever in the circus with him rather than face reality. And to add salt to the wound, it was all for nothing because it was all an adventure. Speaking about the ending itself, in a weird way, my brain connected all this to the old FNAF 4 dream theory. Remember that? What I mean is, according to the dream theory, everything we knew from FNAF 1 to 4 was just a story filtered through the mind of a scared child. If we apply the same reasoning to the show, then if Kane could make up that entire escape and manipulate people's minds like Jax said, what else does he have control over? Is Kinger actually able to think normally in the light, and Kane just makes him unable to? Did Jax almost abstract because Kane thought it would make him happy? At this point, how much control do the characters actually have over themselves? When the episode ended and I laid on my bed, a question lingered on my mind. Is there an exit? The abstraction being caused by Kane to prevent humans from leaving suggests that there is an exit. But there's one thing that doesn't convince me. Kinger's comment on the matter makes me feel doubtful. If he finds the very concept of leaving the circus absurd, it's probably because, to quote a great fan song, there is no exit. Kane doesn't know about the real world and only has these photos as evidence. This is why when Pomni goes through the exit door in the pilot, the rooms keep repeating. It was just Kane attempting to recreate the outside world using only what he knew, since he was cut off from his creators, trying to use that place as an adventure for the circus players since they cared so much about an exit. And he even confirms it.
I do have to apologize for lying about the exit. I knew how much all of you have been wanting there to be one, but, I was having so much trouble figuring out what to put on the other side and ended up never quite finishing it.
And I'm not finished. I'm starting to believe the theory that says the characters are just copies of real people put inside a Tamagotchi-like game. This would explain the intro in the pilot, the favorite character awards, and why Kane seems to cater to a larger audience. There probably was a large audience, but after he was cut off from the real world, he had no way of knowing if anyone was watching anymore. Since the show basically dismissed the idea that the characters are in stasis pods, I find it more plausible that the cast's real-world counterparts have long forgotten about the digital circus. Is it possible that I am wrong and Gooseworks will leave me speechless again by the time episode 8 comes out? Absolutely. But for now, this is what I believe. Before concluding, there's something I want to get off my chest. Some people are saying that this episode is a nothing burger, and I respectfully disagree. My favorite part of this episode is that it forces us to start all over, just like the characters. We viewers thought we had everything figured out, but it turns out we know nothing. This whole thing turned out to be a sick setup for a devastating joke.
You're only making the joke take longer!
We are just as clueless as the circus members. In the end, this show isn't about our theories, it's about the characters. This episode showed us massive development for the characters. The ones that actually matter. The episode is obviously meant to be the launching point for the last act, and the reveals at the end are going to have massive consequences. The characters reacting to what Jax did, possibly some tension about Pomni hesitating even if it was fake, Jax being on his breaking point, Kinger knowing more than we think, and none of the circus members will have any goodwill or tolerance for Kane anymore. They probably won't even know who to trust anymore. Just like Am at the end of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, Kane gets exactly what he wants, but loses in the process. Having him win by making them choose to stay being the final straw that leads to his undoing is so much more interesting than if he just snapped because they tried to escape and abandon him. It makes him a much more compelling antagonist in my eyes. But if you only focus on the plot, you won't notice that. And I think the point of this episode was to remind us all of that. In the end, this is a story about a group of humans coping with the knowledge that they are stuck in a digital hell forever. And honestly, I have no idea how it will end. The last time I got this weird feeling of dread from a show was when I finished Neon Genesis Evangelion and was about to start the end of Evangelion. I knew I had entered the endgame and something horrible was about to happen, and yet I was still oblivious to what would have actually happened. And if the Amazing Digital Circus manages to pull at the end of Evangelion, it may end up in my personal Olympus of TV shows. I can't wait to see what episode 8 will bring us. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.